Hello, this is going to be a discussion of the Euthyphro dilemma and how it represents a challenge to theism, the belief in the existence of God. We'll also be discussing how the dilemma has different implications when it's thrown at polytheism, the belief in many gods, which constitutes the original context of the story, and when it is thrown at Abrahamic monotheism, this omnipotent, unique, omnibenevolent God. First, some quick context. Socrates meets this pious, proud man called Euthyphro at a tribunal. Euthyphro is there to press charges against his father. Euthyphro's father has committed a crime. He has accidentally killed a murderer. Now, the guilt of Euthyphro's father cannot be any blurrier. He didn't intend to kill, and the man who got killed is not some innocent soul. He's a hitman, a murderer. Yet Euthyphro is unshaken. He considers his father a criminal. Socrates is as cocky as can be, and he decides to play Euthyphro. He approaches him and praises him for the religious wise man he is, willing to prosecute his own father in the name of piety. Euthyphro concurs that he is indeed religious and knowledgeable in his faith. Socrates inquires whether he could benefit from Euthyphro's oceanic knowledge, while in reality Socrates is intent on shaking Euthyphro's indeed beliefs. First, Socrates asks Euthyphro, "What makes a man pious?" Euthyphro responds that it is the prosecution of those who go against the gods. Socrates tells him, "Well, no, come on. There must be something more important than prosecuting and oppressing the transgressors." Euthyphro agrees, and he says that, what truly makes a man pious is doing what is right. And this is where he falls right into Socrates' trap. Socrates presents him with the dilemma, which would later be known as the Euthyphro dilemma. But Socrates doesn't frame it as a challenge. No, he acts as if he were genuinely in need of wise Euthyphro's answer. Socrates asks Euthyphro, what makes certain actions right, desired by the gods? And here what is meant by actions are values like justice, honesty, honor. What makes justice right and injustice wrong? First, Euthyphro answers the question by saying that the gods approve the deeds that are right. But Socrates says that if these deeds are already right, worthy of approval, then the gods are only relaying to us the information that these deeds are good, and we still don't know why these deeds are right. Then Euthyphro says, the deeds are right because the gods approve them. But then again, Socrates says, thing is, if the deeds are good because the gods approve them just because they want to, we still don't have an answer for why these deeds are good and worthy of the gods' approval. Both answers do not tell us why certain deeds are good. Euthyphro can't find any satisfactory answer, and he ends up running away. Now, when we place the Euthyphro dilemma in the context of Abrahamic monotheism, things get way more interesting. So the Abrahamic God is powerful. He is omniscient, omnibenevolent, omnipotent. And when we look at values which God commands us to seek and which he himself acts in accordance with, are these values, 1, independently good, or are they 2, good because God wills them to be good? Both answers are problematic. If the values are independently good, then there is a system outside the control of God and which obliges God to command the values and to act upon them himself. In this situation, this system is more powerful than God. But isn't it true that there shouldn't be anything more powerful than God? If such an independent system exists, who is behind it? If there is no independent system, the values are good for no other reason than because God wills them to be good. In this case, morality is arbitrary. It's entirely dependent on the observer's will. If we follow this reasoning, then there was nothing wrong with God commanding Abraham to kill his son, since killing one's child is not something that is independently bad. If God commands it, then it's good. But the reader of the story feels a relief when God intervenes and stops the murder of Isaac. Now let's look at the two possible answers, the first horn and the second horn, because if you are presented with a dilemma, you will have to choose one position. The two positions are objectivism and voluntarism. Objectivism is the idea that moral truths exist outside God's will, and the position is embraced by a number of philosophers. First, let's go with Leibniz. He firmly defends the idea that moral truths are not contingent on God's will. Hence, God can't act against them. You think that this weakens God because of the verb can't? Leibniz anticipates your worry and compares moral truths to mathematical realities. Asking whether God can act against moral truths is the same as asking whether God can or can't say that 2 + 2 equals anything other than 4. Saying that God is weakened by not being able to act against the moral truth is similar to saying that God is weakened by not being able to decree that 2 + 2 equals anything other than 4. Leibniz is very critical of the voluntarist position. He says that if God willed moral laws arbitrarily and that nothing is inherently good or bad, God wouldn't be loved for his goodness. Leibniz says, here's the problem with voluntarism. If we believe that moral truths are not independently real and that they are whatever God wills, then this reduces God to a really powerful tyrant who won against all his enemies and enforced the law he willed. What would make God then different from a demon he won? In Islamic philosophy, voluntarism is a dominant view, but there are notable objectivists. The most prominent ones would be the Mu'tazilites. Quickly, in Islamic philosophy there are two major philosophical schools, and they usually have opposing views, the Ash'arites and the Mu'tazilites. Now the Mu'tazilites are of the opinion that moral truths are independent from God's will, and that God cannot do that which is immoral. For example, God cannot be unjust or deceitful. It is a position that elevates humans' capacity of reason, but a position that undermines the idea of an omnipotent God. This position is referred to as the first horn, and it creates some problems. First, if there is a system to which God has to conform, then this topples God off the top of the food chain. In this case, there is at least one thing that is above this God, which is the moral code. Hence, God is not supreme. Second, the freedom of God. If God has to do something, then God is not free. Third, God is reduced to a middleman. He doesn't decide what is good and what is bad. He only relays it to us and makes sure we act upon it. The first horn, the position that there exists a system of what is right and wrong, is really at odds with the idea of a transcendent God who creates everything and without whom nothing is created, because he still exists within a system, within this system, and a system that he doesn't control. The first horn makes the Abrahamic God exist within something, very much like Spinoza's God. This points to the force of Spinozism, the idea that everything exists in God. Now, let's look into voluntarism, the second horn. Voluntarism is unquestionably the one that grants the most power to God. There is no system of morality that exists outside God's will and to which God has to conform. A thing is good for no other reason than because wills it to be good for absolutely no other reason. Some prominent names that defend this position would be Descartes, Connundrum, Luther, Calvin, and the Islamic school of thought of the Ash'arites, spearheaded by the troublesome Ash'arite Al-Ghazali. So Descartes is a voluntarist. For Descartes, all there is under the control of God. This includes moral truths and even mathematical realities. There is no independent reality of 2 + 2 = 4. Logic is the creation of God. There wouldn't be any logic or 2 + 2 = 4 if God willed otherwise, and God is capable of reversing any logical law if he wills to. The Asherite school is entirely for voluntarism. The Asherites believe that what humans perceive as moral or immoral is perceived in such ways only because God wills it so. And God embeds in people an appreciation of his will. For example, stopping the pain of a suffering person is not something independently good. It appears good to us only because God decrees so. Here, let's open some brackets. Many commentators, especially from outside philosophy, jump to one faulty conclusion. They conclude that the triumph of the Asherite school over the Mutazilites is responsible for the atrocities that some extremist groups perpetrate. If a group or a person believes that what is right is what God wills to be right, so even if this person or group naturally feels that skinning a human alive or decapitating him is terribly wrong, he would fight off this feeling, believing that nothing is objectively wrong. More so, if this person is led to believe that committing the terrible act is what God wills, then the atrocious act becomes even morally obliging. This perverted line of thought is not the doing of the Asherites. They were intellectuals who accepted difference, who respected their opponents, and who wouldn't have condoned any of that. Plus, and more importantly, and to be intellectually honest, the Asherite position is that if the perpetrator feels at some point that what he's doing is wrong, it is because God wills it. Overriding this feeling and proceeding with the terrible act is the person's doing. We live in a world where killing is willed by God to be wrong, and God doesn't change his mind. Finally, to conclude, let me relay to you the opinion of somebody who doesn't clearly pick a side, but to say something I find really interesting. And this person in question would be Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein says that of the 2 horns, the first is certainly convenient, but it is the second one that is more interesting. Now, this video has reached its end. Until we meet again, have a great day.